My name is Grace, and I'm 28 years old. 3 years ago, I walked down the aisle in a pristine white wedding dress, holding Ethan's hand, surrounded by the blessings of our families. Ethan was an only son, a project manager at a private construction firm. He had a stable job and a gentle demeanor. When I married into his family, everyone told me how lucky I was, that it must have taken a lifetime of good karma to land a husband like him. And then there was my mother-in-law, Helen, a woman who seemed the epitome of grace, always speaking of faith and prayer. But as they say, you never truly know what goes on behind closed doors. My married life was anything but the picture-perfect image it appeared to be. 3 years had passed, and my stomach remained flat. The pressure to produce an heir weighed on my shoulders more heavily each day. My husband, Ethan, never said it outright, but I knew he was growing anxious. As for my mother-in-law, Helen, she no longer maintained the gentle facade from our first meeting. Whenever relatives gathered, she would sigh dramatically, saying things like, "Grace is so capable, so resourceful, it's just that the blessing of children hasn't come to her yet. This house is so empty, we just long for the sound of a child to bring some joy." Her words were like daggers to my heart. Ethan and I had seen multiple specialists. The doctors said I had a minor inflammation, something that just needed a bit of time and treatment. But for some reason, 3 years had passed with no good news. I tormented myself, feeling like I was the one at fault, a burden to the entire family. I bent over backwards trying to earn Helen's approval. I would host family dinners, remember every birthday, and always took her side in arguments, all because I felt so insecure about not being able to get pregnant, hoping to somehow make up for my perceived shortcomings. This morning, as soon as I woke up, a wave of indescribable nausea rose in my throat. The feeling was familiar, like the times I'd had phantom pregnancies before, but this time it was accompanied by a bone-deep exhaustion. I suddenly remembered my period was over a week late. A tiny spark of hope ignited within me. I rushed to the nearby pharmacy, my heart pounding like a drum. Clutching the pregnancy test, I locked myself in the bathroom and held my breath, waiting. Every second crawled by, and then 2 distinct pink lines appeared. I froze, tears streaming down my face, not from sadness, but from overwhelming joy. 3 years. Finally, God had shown me mercy. I wanted to call Ethan immediately to share the news, but he was on a business trip in another state and had been gone for nearly a week. I wanted to give him a huge surprise. I decided to go to the OB/GYN clinic to be certain. I wanted to have the ultrasound picture in my hand before I told him. The thought of his happy face, of my mother-in-law's joy, warmed my heart. I quickly changed and called an Uber to the clinic. It was packed, the distinct smell of antiseptic filling the air. I patiently took a number, filled out the paperwork, and sat in the waiting area. Most of the people around me were young couples, there for checkups, their eyes full of happiness. Looking at them, I smiled to myself, thinking, asterisk, if only Ethan were here, asterisk. He was always saying he was busy, so busy that even on a week-long trip, he only managed 1 or 2 rushed phone calls. After a long wait, it was finally my turn for the ultrasound. When it was done, the doctor told me to wait outside for the results. I sat in the hallway, my heart fluttering with anticipation. As I was daydreaming about the future, about the child about to enter our lives, a familiar figure drifted into my line of sight. My heart skipped a beat. I rubbed my eyes, not believing what I was seeing. It was Ethan, my husband. He wasn't in his usual work attire but a simple t-shirt. He was standing at the cashier's desk in the premium services wing, not far from me. I was about to stand up and call his name, but my feet felt rooted to the floor. Beside him was a beautiful young woman, her belly already visibly round beneath a loose maternity dress. I was stunned, a roaring in my ears. Ethan was gently guiding the woman, his hand resting lightly on her belly with a tenderness I had never seen. It was like a bucket of ice water had been dumped over my head. Who was I? Where was I? Didn't he say he was on a business trip? I quickly ducked behind a large pillar, my heart threatening to burst from my chest. They didn't see me. They walked toward a nearby waiting area and sat down. The young woman leaned her head on Ethan's shoulder coquettishly while he meticulously peeled an apple for her. That scene, that tenderness, should have been mine. I heard the girl's soft voice. "Ethan, I'm so tired. I wonder if the baby is kicking." Her voice was sweet, but it felt like 1,000 needles pricking my skin. Ethan smiled, fed her a slice of apple, and then pressed his ear to her belly. "You need to eat more," he said, his voice full of the adoration I had longed to hear for 3 years. "Try to have a son for Mom. She'll be so happy. She already promised she'd transfer the deed to the downtown house to you as soon as you give birth." My head spun. My mother-in-law, Helen, the pious woman who always spoke of karma, she knew about this too. The girl, I now recognized, was Chloe, the new accountant at Ethan's firm. She pouted. "What about Grace? What about your wife?" Ethan waved his hand dismissively, his brow furrowed with annoyance, his voice cold and cruel. "Forget her. She's a broken machine who can't have kids. You're the blessing this family needs." A clatter echoed as the phone in my hand slipped and hit the floor. Both Ethan and Chloe jumped, turning around. Our 4 eyes met, and time seemed to stop in that fateful moment. The noise I made wasn't loud, but in the quiet of the premium clinic, it was enough to draw every eye toward me. Ethan froze, his eyes wide. The tenderness on his face from a second ago instantly morphed into panic and confusion. The half-peeled apple fell to the floor and rolled away. As for the girl, Chloe, she was surprised too, but only for a moment. She quickly regained her composure, even letting a small, smug smirk play on her lips, a look of provocation and victory. She tightened her grip on Ethan's arm as if to claim her territory. I just stood there, the world crumbling at my feet. The words "forget her, she's a broken machine" echoed in my mind. A broken machine? For 3 years, I had endured, I had blamed myself, I had tried so hard, only to be given that bitter label by the man I loved. Just then, a nurse's voice called out from the examination room, "Grace Miller, your ultrasound results are ready." The call was like a life raft, pulling me from my stunned silence. I didn't look at Ethan or Chloe. I stumbled forward like a sleepwalker, my body heavy as lead. I entered the exam room and took the report from the doctor. He smiled kindly at me. "Congratulations," he said. "The pregnancy is viable, about 5 weeks along. The heartbeat is strong. But because of your history of minor inflammation, you need to be very careful. Avoid heavy lifting and stress. 5 weeks, a strong heartbeat." Each word from the doctor was another knife twisting in my heart. My child, the child I had yearned for 3 years, had arrived at the exact moment I discovered the ugliest truth. Tears suddenly streamed down my face. The doctor, concerned, asked, "What's wrong? Is something the matter? You should be happy about being pregnant." I quickly wiped my tears and forced a smile that was more contorted than a sob. "No, nothing. I'm just so happy. Thank you, doctor." I clutched the ultrasound report and walked out of the room, my breathing ragged. I saw Ethan and Chloe still standing in the same spot, seemingly arguing about something. When Ethan saw me, he quickly let go of Chloe's hand and rushed over. "Grace, why are you here?" he stammered, his eyes darting around, avoiding my gaze. I didn't answer him. I looked directly at Chloe. She stared back, her expression defiant. Then I turned back to Ethan, the man I once thought was my entire world. "Are you on a business trip?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Oh, that." Ethan waved his hands frantically, the clumsy lie tumbling out ridiculously. No, I was just helping my boss by taking his wife, Chloe, to her appointment. My boss was too busy, so I helped him out." I burst out laughing. A bitter, sharp laugh echoed in the hospital corridor. "Helping your boss? Helping him to the point of rubbing her belly, peeling her apples, listening for the baby to kick? Helping him to the point of promising her the deed to a house?" Chloe stood behind them, arms crossed, looking amused as if watching a great play. She had no intention of hiding anything. "Ethan," I said his name, forcing him to look at me. He finally dared to meet my eyes, and I saw pure fear in them. My hand trembled as I crumpled the ultrasound report. I had imagined the moment I would give this to him, how he would rejoice, how he would pull me into a tight embrace, but now it was all just a cruel joke. I held the crumpled paper out in front of him, tapping it lightly against his chest. "Is this your business trip? Is this you helping your boss?" I paused, taking a deep breath to keep myself from collapsing. Then I screamed, ignoring the curious stares of the people around us. "Then what about this? Were you helping with this too?" Ethan stared in shock at the ultrasound report, then back at me. He took a step back, his face turning ghostly white. I saw it clearly in his eyes, not joy, not happy surprise. No, it was pure, unadulterated panic. He was more panicked than when I caught him with Chloe. In that instant I knew. My marriage, my love, it was all truly over. My child, the one I had just conceived, was not a source of joy for him. It was a complication, an obstacle to the plan he and his mother had so carefully arranged. "Grace, let me explain," Ethan said, grabbing my hand. I yanked it away, feeling disgusted. "Don't touch me." I ran out of the hospital, into a light drizzle that was growing heavier by the minute. I didn't know where I was running. My whole body shook from the cold, but it was nothing compared to the icy chill in my chest. I could hear Ethan calling my name from behind, but I didn't dare turn back. I was afraid of my own pathetic, pitiful reflection. I hailed a cab and gave my home address automatically. I had to go home. I had to face this. I couldn't run away. When I got to the gate, I saw Ethan had just pulled up in his car. His clothes were disheveled, his face pale from chasing after me. He scrambled out of the car and blocked my path. "Grace, please calm down. Listen to me. It's not what you think." I said nothing, my eyes vacant. I pushed him aside with all my strength, took out my key, and opened the door. I had to settle this with both him and his mother. I stepped inside the house I had once considered my sanctuary. It now felt cold and foreign. My mother-in-law, Helen, was sitting on the sofa, peeling fruit, a religious channel playing on the TV. Seeing me drenched like a drowned rat, she looked up, her voice still full of that gentle kindness. "Dear, where have you been to get so soaked?" "Ethan, you're back too? Where did you two go without telling me?" Ethan stood behind me, hesitating, not daring to step forward. "Mother." I couldn't bear it another second. This charade was making me sick. I walked straight to the coffee table and threw the crumpled ultrasound report down in front of Helen. Tears mixed with rainwater streamed down my cheeks. "Why don't you ask your son where he's just been?" I screamed, my voice tearing through the quiet house. "He was on a business trip. He was helping his boss's wife at the maternity clinic." Helen froze, the apple slice in her hand falling to the floor. She looked at me, then at Ethan. A flicker of panic crossed her eyes, but it was gone in an instant. Ethan quickly tried to explain. "Mom, it's not like that." Grace misunderstood. "It's all a misunderstanding." I let out a dry, rattling laugh. "It sounded utterly desolate. I saw you rubbing her belly with my own eyes. I heard you promising her the deed with my own ears. Am I deaf, Ethan? Am I blind?" A massive argument erupted. I cried. I screamed. I poured out all the pain and torment of the past 3 years. I told them about all the doctor's visits, about drinking countless bitter remedies, all in the hope of having a child for this family. And Ethan, he just stood there with his head bowed. I had my reasons," he mumbled. I was set up. Just then, Helen suddenly stood up. Her gentle, pious expression was gone. She slammed her hand down on the glass table, the sound sharp and jarring. "That's enough." Both Ethan and I fell silent. I stopped crying, staring at her in shock. She walked toward me, her face hardened, her eyes cold and sharp, a completely different person from the devout mother-in-law I thought I knew. That's right, she stared directly at me. I sent him. I felt my ears ringing, the world tilting. I had to grab the back of a chair to stay upright. "Mom, what did you say?" Helen smirked, a cruel smile on her face. "I said I let Ethan go find someone to have a child." "Who do you think you are, making a scene in my house? You've been here for 3 years with a flat stomach, wasting so much of my son's money on doctors. If you can't have a baby, you should at least know your place." Each word was like a needle piercing my heart. The mother-in-law I had respected so much, the woman I had treated like my own mother. "But I'm pregnant," I screamed. "It was my last hope. I'm 5 weeks pregnant. The doctor said so." I thought she would be surprised, happy, or at least confused. But no. Helen looked at me, her eyes devoid of emotion. She even sneered. "So what if you're pregnant? Do you know if it's a boy or a girl yet?" she asked calmly, then answered herself. "Chloe has had 4 ultrasounds. My doctor friend confirmed it's definitely a grandson. As for your pregnancy, if it's a girl, you should get rid of it early to save us the trouble." She paused, studying me. "And if," she said, "if it's a boy, you can give birth to him here. I'll raise him. And then you can get the hell out of my house." I was completely shattered. It turned out that whether I was pregnant or not didn't matter. They needed a son they could control. Chloe's child was what they wanted. She finished with one final sentence that slammed the door shut on my marriage. "A woman who can't have a child in 3 years needs to know her place. It's good that you're pregnant, but Chloe's baby boy is the true heir. You'd better watch how you behave." I ran to my room and locked the door. I collapsed onto the cold floor, Helen's cruel words echoing in my ears. It turned out I was just a machine, a broken one at that. All my efforts, all my sacrifices over the past 3 years were nothing but a joke. I hugged my stomach, tears flowing endlessly. Asterisk. "Oh, my baby." Asterisk, I thought. Asterisk, "I'm so sorry. How am I going to protect you?" Asterisk. I heard Ethan knocking on the door, his voice weary. "Grace, open the door. You have to understand my position and Mom's. She's just under pressure from the family. She just wants a grandchild to hold." "Don't be mad." I didn't answer. I didn't want to hear another word. Understand? Who would understand me? Who understood the pain of a betrayed wife, a mother who learned of her child's existence only to hear such venomous words? I pulled a pillow over my ears. After a while, the knocking stopped. I guessed he had given up, or maybe he had gone to call and comfort the blessing of his family. That night, I lay in bed, my eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. I couldn't sleep. My stomach started to cramp, probably from the immense emotional shock. I was terrified. I was afraid I would lose my baby. I gently rubbed my belly, telling myself I had to be strong for my child. Unable to get into the room, Ethan slept on the living room sofa. I could hear him tossing and turning, sighing heavily. In the middle of the night, I was thirsty. I crept to the door and opened it a crack, intending to get some water. The living room was dark, save for the faint blue glow from the phone in Ethan's hand. He was curled up on the sofa, but he wasn't sleeping. He was texting. I hid behind the wall, my heart feeling like it was being squeezed. I could clearly see who he was texting, Chloe. The message on the screen, though blurry, was still legible. Asterisk. "Don't be mad. Mom just has a temper. Just focus on the pregnancy. I'll take you shopping tomorrow. I'll make it up to you." Asterisk. Make it up to her? What was he going to make up to her with? With my pain? With my tears? At this very moment, when his wife had just discovered she was pregnant and was suffering in her room, he was busy comforting his mistress. I silently returned to my room and locked the door. The initial anger and pain now gave way to a cold disappointment that chilled me to the bone. This man, my husband, wasn't just weak, he was cruel. He completely sided with his mother, obeyed her every word, and had utterly abandoned me. I suddenly realized I couldn't just get a divorce right away. If I left now, I would walk away with nothing but the baby in my womb. Helen and Ethan had planned it all. They would use my infertility as an excuse, making me the one at fault. Now that I was pregnant, they might even slander me, claiming the child wasn't Ethan's. With their ruthlessness, they were capable of anything. I remembered that the house was bought after we married, but Ethan had convinced me to let him be the sole name on the deed, saying it was better for business loans. He also held all our savings, claiming that a man handling the money was what made a family prosper. I had been too trusting, too blind. No, I couldn't leave. I had to stay. I couldn't let them achieve their goal so easily. I had to gather evidence of his affair. I had to find out what our marital assets truly consisted of after 3 years. I had to protect my child and myself. I had made a terrible mistake by trusting so foolishly. Now it was time for me to fix it. The next morning, I walked out of my room, trying my best to appear calm. I put on a little makeup to hide my swollen eyes. Ethan had already left for work, probably unable to face me. Only my mother-in-law and I were in the kitchen. I expected her to continue her tirade, but the atmosphere was completely different. Helen was at the counter with her high-speed blender, mixing a murky, green wellness smoothie. The air smelled sharply of wheatgrass and strange powders she ordered from obscure websites. Seeing me, she turned around, her face beaming, her voice sickeningly sweet, as if the horrific argument from yesterday had never happened. "Grace, you're up. Come here, dear. I was a bit harsh last night. Please don't take it to heart. I'm just worried about Ethan, so eager for a grandchild. After all, the baby in your belly is our blood. Of course I care about it." I was stunned by her 180-degree turn. She was a brilliant actress, so brilliant that if I hadn't seen her true face yesterday, I might have believed her. She helped me to a chair and carefully placed a steaming bowl of dark, murky liquid in front of me. "Here, drink this. It's a fertility cleanse I made. All natural. It will purify your body so the baby can attach. Drink it while it's hot. It'll strengthen the pregnancy, help the baby attach firmly. Who knows? It might even be another grandson. What a blessing that would be." She smiled that kind, gentle smile, but in my eyes, it sent a shiver down my spine. I looked at the bowl. The herbal smell was strong, but mixed in it, I detected a strange, pungent odor, a grassy scent like crushed leaves. Thank you, Mom. But I'm feeling very nauseous. Can I drink it when it's cooled down a bit? I tried to find an excuse, my throat dry. No, you must drink it hot for it to work. Helen insisted, pushing the bowl closer to me. Drink it. I want to see you finish it, to put my mind at ease. You need to nourish yourself right from the start. I couldn't refuse. Her eyes were fixed on me. Trembling, I raised the bowl, closed my eyes, and took a tiny sip. The bitter, acrid taste shot up my nose, and that pungent smell was even more pronounced. I immediately felt sick. I coughed violently and quickly put the bowl down. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm going to be sick. The morning sickness is too much." I rushed into the bathroom, slammed the door, and dry-heaved, trying to force out the sip I had just swallowed. From outside, I heard Helen sigh. "This girl is so fragile. Well, I'm leaving the tonic on the table. You have to finish it later. Don't waste it." Hearing her footsteps go out to the patio, I cautiously emerged. The nearly full bowl was still on the table. What was I going to do with it? I didn't dare pour it down the sink, afraid she'd find out. My eyes fell on the orchid pot on the balcony, my favorite Phalaenopsis orchid. After a second of hesitation, I decisively picked up the bowl. I walked quickly to the balcony, looked around to see Helen still busy outside, and poured the entire contents into the base of the orchid. I even added some water on top to hide it, telling myself I was probably being paranoid. It was just a normal herbal tonic. I spent the rest of the day in a state of anxiety, periodically checking on the orchid. It seemed fine, but the next morning, the first thing I did upon waking was rush to the balcony. The sight before me made my heart stop. The Phalaenopsis orchid, which had been vibrant and blooming, was now mysteriously withered. All its leaves were yellowed and drooping as if they'd been boiled. The blossoms had turned black. I stood frozen, a chill running down my spine. That bowl wasn't a prenatal tonic. It was poison, or at the very least, a powerful abortifacient. She didn't want me to keep this baby. Perhaps she was afraid that if my baby was a boy, he would compete for the inheritance with Chloe's true heir. Or perhaps she simply wanted me to miscarry so she would have a legitimate reason to kick me, the broken machine, out of the house. My heart turned to ice. This was no longer about an affair and betrayal. This was a murder plot. A plot to kill her own grandchild. I knew I couldn't stay in that house another second. My baby's life was in danger every single day. But I couldn't just leave yet. I needed a plan, a safe place to go, and most importantly, an ally. I suddenly thought of Laura. Laura was Ethan's younger sister, but her existence in this family was almost invisible. I had only met her once, at my wedding 3 years ago. She looked like Ethan but had a much more determined and sharp gaze. I heard she was a doctor, straightforward and outspoken, and had moved out after a serious conflict with my mother-in-law. She hadn't been home in years. I didn't have her number. Ethan and Helen kept all information about her hidden, as if trying to erase her from the family tree. I'd asked Ethan about her once, but he just brushed it off, saying, "My sister is stubborn and doesn't listen to Mom. Just don't bring her up. I had to find her." Luckily, I worked in the pharmaceutical industry. My company was sponsoring a major medical conference downtown that weekend. I quickly scanned the list of guest speakers. My heart pounded when I saw the name, Dr. Laura Miller, Department of Neurology, State General Hospital. I immediately registered to attend as a company representative. For the rest of the week, I acted as normal as possible around Helen. I pretended to drink the tonics she gave me, secretly pouring them out, while taking the prenatal vitamins I bought for myself. At the conference, I saw Laura from a distance. She was in a white coat, giving a presentation, exuding confidence and professionalism. I waited until she finished and stepped into the hallway to take a call before I timidly approached her. "Excuse me, are you Laura?" I asked, my voice shaking slightly. "I'm Grace, Ethan's wife." Laura ended her call and turned to look at me. She wasn't surprised, but her eyes held a complex emotion, something akin to sympathy. "I know who you are." Ethan showed me the wedding photos. "What can I do for you?" We stood in a quiet corner of the hallway. I didn't know where to begin, a lump forming in my throat. Suddenly, Laura glanced down at my stomach, even though I had tried to hide it with a loose dress. "Are you pregnant?" she asked. I flinched, instinctively covering my belly. "How? How did you know?" "The way you walk and how you unconsciously rub your stomach," Laura said, a professional smile flashing briefly. "Don't be surprised. I'm a doctor." I nodded, tears starting to well up. I couldn't hold it in any longer. Laura looked around, then pulled me into a hidden corner near the fire escape. Her expression suddenly became incredibly serious, the professional coolness gone. "Listen to me," she said, gripping my arm tightly. "Are you really pregnant? Don't lie to me. I'm 6 weeks," I sobbed. "You need to run," Laura said urgently, her own voice trembling. "Get out of that house immediately, and whatever you do, don't let my mother know you're keeping this baby." I was stunned. "Laura, you know what's happening, don't you? Ethan. He's having an affair with another woman. She's pregnant too. And Mom." Laura cut me off, her eyes filled with weariness. "The affair is just the tip of the iceberg. Grace, you have no idea how terrifying my mother can be, but—" "Mom gave me a prenatal tonic," I said naively, not daring to mention the dead orchid. "A prenatal tonic?" Laura let out a harsh, bitter laugh, full of pain and fury. "If you had drunk my mother's tonic, you and your baby probably wouldn't be here right now. Do you know why I left home and haven't been back for years?" I shook my head, my whole body starting to tremble. "Because my mother," Laura's grip tightened, "is not the pious woman she appears to be. She is obsessive, superstitious, and tyrannical. Years ago, I was in love with a classmate from medical school. She went to a psychic who told her our birth dates were incompatible, that our marriage would ruin Ethan's career. She forced me to break up with him. I refused." Laura took a deep, shaky breath, her voice cracking. "I was pregnant then, too. She also brewed me tonics, telling me they were for my health. I believed her until I started hemorrhaging. My boyfriend rushed me to the ER just in time. I survived, but I lost the baby. I later found out that in the herbal dregs she threw out, there were traces of a potent herbal abortifacient. A cold sweat broke out on my back, a wave of nausea hit me." Laura's story matched the tonic and the dead orchid perfectly. Laura looked at me, her eyes filled with a grave warning. "My mother is obsessed with continuing the family line, but she doesn't trust medicine. She only trusts psychics, charms, and cruel, ancient remedies. If you stay there, you and your child will not be safe. Believe me. Here's my number," Laura said, hastily scribbling it on a piece of paper. Run. Find a safe place, then call me. Go now." I left the conference, my mind a complete blank. Laura's warning. My mother is terrifying. She's superstitious, tyrannical, and the painful story of her lost baby haunted me. I wandered the streets, not daring to go home right away. I needed time to process this chaotic, horrifying information. If that tonic really was meant to induce a miscarriage, why would Helen give it to me times after times finding out about Ethan's affair? Shouldn't she want me to keep this baby? Or, as Laura said, did she only trust the psychic? Maybe the psychic predicted my baby was a girl, so she wanted to get rid of it. But another detail in Laura's words kept nagging at me. Laura was a neurologist. Why neurology? The coincidence made me remember something. Ethan, my husband, always claimed to be healthy, but I occasionally saw him suffer from intense, debilitating headaches. During those episodes, his hands would tremble slightly. When I asked, he would just brush it off, blaming work stress and business dinners. And every time it happened, Helen would immediately brew him some kind of tonic, calling it a traditional brain-boosting remedy. A woman's intuition told me Helen's superstition and Ethan's illness were connected, and it all tied into her obsession with having a male heir. I decided I had to find the truth. I couldn't just run away without knowing what I was running from. I went home in the afternoon, trying to act normal. When Helen saw me, she asked, "Where have you been all day?" I called, but you didn't answer. I forced a weak smile. I had a client meeting, and my phone died. "Did you need me for something?" "Oh, no," she said, her eyes scrutinizing me. "I just wanted to remind you that tomorrow is the 1st of the month. I want you to come to church with me, to pray for the baby." I nodded. "Okay, Mom." The next morning, I pretended to have severe morning sickness and said I was too weak to go to church. She seemed displeased, muttering something about me being fragile, but she didn't force me. As soon as she and Chloe, who I heard was going with her to be introduced to the ancestors, left the house, I sprang into action. I knew I didn't have much time. I started searching Ethan's and my bedroom. Nothing. Then his home office, just company papers. Finally, I risked going into Helen's room. It reeked of incense. I searched her closet and under the bed, but found nothing. Just as I was about to give up, my eyes landed on an old wooden chest in the corner, covered with a red cloth. It had belonged to my late father-in-law. I had never seen Helen open it. I tried the latch. It was locked. I looked around for a key and found a small set hidden at the bottom of a vase of fake flowers on the family altar. My hands shaking, I fit a key into the lock. Asterisk. Click asterisk. Inside, instead of old clothes, was a stack of yellowed medical files. Trembling, I opened them. They were records for my father-in-law, and then, for Ethan, starting from when he was just 15 years old. I was floored. My husband didn't have stress headaches. The files clearly stated, "A rare hereditary neurodegenerative disease." I read on, my limbs turning to jelly. The disease had a 50% chance of being passed to male offspring, typically manifesting in adulthood, causing progressive nerve damage, loss of muscle control, and premature death. My father-in-law had died from this disease, and Ethan, my husband, carried the gene. I sank to the cold floor. Now I understood. I understood Helen's obsession with having a son. She wasn't just superstitious. She was desperate. She needed another son, a healthy one, to replace Ethan. And Chloe was the tool to gamble on that chance. And me? My baby? If it was a boy, he too would have a 50% chance of having the disease. Was it possible she wanted to eliminate my pregnancy because she feared it would be another defective product? The sound of the gate creaking open startled me. Helen was back. I quickly shoved the files back in the chest, locked it, and returned the keys. I slipped out of her room, my heart pounding. I had just stumbled upon a secret far more terrifying than infidelity. I lived in that house for a few more days, my nerves frayed, feeling like I was walking on a tightrope. The secret of Ethan's genetic disease and Helen's cruelty was a crushing weight on my chest. I had to leave, I told myself, but I couldn't go empty-handed. I needed more proof of our assets, and most importantly, a way to protect my child after I left. I started pretending to obey her. I accepted every tonic she gave me, then secretly poured them away. I acted weak and tired from morning sickness to lower her guard. I thought if I was compliant, she might leave me alone for a while, but I was wrong. My compliance only paved the way for an even greater humiliation. One weekend afternoon, I was cooking in the kitchen when I heard a car at the gate. Ethan was home early, but he wasn't alone. Chloe was with him, and she wasn't just visiting, she was carrying 2 large suitcases. My heart clenched. I walked into the living room. Helen was already at the door, her face beaming as if welcoming a queen. "You're here, dear," she said, rushing to take Chloe's handbag, her voice dripping with affection. "Was the drive tiring? I've already prepared your room." Ethan stood beside them, looking a bit awkward when he saw me, but he didn't dare meet my eyes. He just bowed his head and carried Chloe's suitcases inside. I stood frozen in the middle of the living room. "What is going on? What is the meaning of this, Ethan?" I asked, my voice trembling, but I tried to keep it steady. Ethan stammered. Grace, Helen immediately stepped in front of him, like a mother hen protecting her chick. She looked at me, her smile gone, replaced by her usual coldness. "Chloe is carrying my grandson. It's not safe for her to be out there alone. I've brought her here so I can take proper care of her." "Proper care?" I laughed bitterly, tears welling up. "Then what about me, Helen? I'm also pregnant with Ethan's child. Are you planning to have the wife and the mistress live under the same roof?" "Wife?" Helen sneered. "Do you even have the right to use that word? You were a wife who couldn't have a child for 3 years. Now you're pregnant, but who knows if it's a boy or a girl? Chloe is bringing a blessing to this house. As the wife, you should be gracious. You should know how to share your husband. Or do you want to make a scene and have the whole neighborhood laugh at us for having such a difficult daughter-in-law?" I was speechless. Her logic was insane. So not only was I supposed to accept my husband's affair, but I was also expected to graciously welcome his mistress into our home and consider it a blessing. Chloe stood behind Helen, a faint smile on her face, the smile of a victor. She was led upstairs to the master guest room, the largest and nicest room, while I remained in the old bedroom Ethan and I had once shared. From that day on, my life truly became a living hell. Chloe was treated like a queen. Helen wouldn't let her lift a finger. Every morning, Helen would be up early, brewing expensive soups and making lavish meals for her. When Ethan came home from work, he would rush to Chloe's room to give her massages and dote on her. As for me, I became the unpaid maid. Helen said that since I was pregnant, I needed to move around more for an easy delivery. She made me cook, do laundry, and clean the entire house. One evening, Chloe was lounging on the sofa eating grapes. "Grace," she called out, "I'm craving that fish soup you make. Can you make some for me?" I remember Ethan saying, "You make it the best." I stood there, mop in hand, tears of humiliation burning my throat. She was deliberately insulting me, using my husband's own words of praise to order me around. I looked at Ethan, who was sitting next to her, peeling an orange. He heard her, but he pretended to be deaf. He said nothing, not even a flicker of guilt in his eyes. Helen came out of the kitchen. "If she's craving it, go make it," she called. "Serve her well. When she gives birth to a son, some of the good fortune might rub off on you. Maybe I'll even take pity and let you stay." I gripped the mop handle so tightly my nails dug into my palms, drawing blood. I realized then that in this house, I was no longer a person. I was just a useless object, a servant waiting to be thrown out. Living under the same roof with Chloe was the most torturous period of my life. I had to watch my husband lavish affection on another woman. I had to listen to their happy laughter coming from the room next door while I huddled alone in my cold one. Helen became increasingly cruel, treating me like a thorn in her side, always finding excuses to berate me. I grew thin and gaunt, even as the baby inside me grew. I ate my meals with tears, my nights sleepless from the pain, humiliation, and the terror of that genetic disease. I knew I couldn't endure it any longer. I had to have one last clear conversation with Ethan. I needed to know if there was any shred of love or responsibility left in his heart for me and our unborn child. That evening, Chloe felt tired and went to bed early. Helen also retired to her room for her nightly prayers. I waited for Ethan to finish his shower and cornered him in his home office, the one place Chloe and Helen rarely entered. "I need to talk to you," I said, my voice strangely calm. When pain reaches its peak, perhaps there are no tears left to cry. Ethan seemed surprised, unused to this cold expression on my face. Okay. What is it? Can we talk tomorrow? I'm a little tired." "No. We're talking now." I closed the door. "I know." Ethan flinched, panic evident in his eyes. "No? No what? About Chloe?" "I'm sorry, but Mom, not about Chloe." I cut him off. "I saw Dad's medical files in Mom's chest, and I saw yours, the hereditary neurodegenerative disease." The air in the room turned to ice. Ethan froze, his face as white as a sheet. The panic in his eyes was even greater than when I'd caught him at the clinic. He staggered backward. "You were snooping through Mom's things? Who gave you the right?" "I wasn't snooping," I screamed, my composure shattering. "I found them by accident." "But that's not the point. The point is you lied to me. You knew you had this disease, you knew your father died from it, yet you still married me. You let me hope for a child. Do you have any idea it can be passed on to a son?" Ethan stumbled back and collapsed into his chair, running his hands through his hair. The initial panic was replaced by a sick, twisted anger. He looked up, his eyes bloodshot. "What do you know?" he yelled. It was the first time he had ever raised his voice at me. "You only know about medicine and doctors. Do you have any idea how much I've suffered? Mom told me it's not a disease, it's a curse. It's because our family is haunted. Dad died because he didn't believe, because he refused to perform the rituals." I was stunned. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My husband, a project manager living in the 21st century, was spouting such superstitious nonsense. His own sister was a doctor, yet he believed in charms and rituals. "Mom said," he continued, his voice like a man possessed, "that as long as she prays sincerely and lifts the curse, and most importantly, as long as this family has a healthy grandson, a blessing to carry on the line, the curse will be broken, everything will be fine. I'll be cured." Now I understood everything. Chloe wasn't just a surrogate. She and the baby in her womb were a sacrifice, a talisman Helen was using to cure her son's curse. "And what about me?" I asked, trembling. "I'm pregnant too. Our child. Aren't you afraid he'll inherit it?" Ethan, I had to call him he, now looked at me with cold, distant eyes. "Who knows if your baby is a boy or a girl? Chloe's pregnancy is what matters." Mom said the psychic confirmed it. "Chloe's baby is the blessing who will fix everything. As for you," he paused, then delivered the cruelest blow. "You should stop making trouble. If you can't help me, at least know your place." "Know my place?" I repeated, feeling the blood freeze in my veins. "How should I know my place? By accepting being a servant while you and your mother bring your mistress home to be worshipped? If that's what you want to call it, fine." He slammed his hand on the desk. "Let me tell you, Grace, I've put up with you for 3 years, and that's more than enough. If it wasn't for my mother stopping me, I would have left you long ago. You're a useless woman. A broken machine." He repeated the exact words he had used with Chloe at the clinic. Broken machine. So it wasn't a lie to placate his mistress. It was what he truly thought. I was just a broken machine. I didn't cry anymore. I stared at the man before me, the man I had once loved and trusted. He was no longer the Ethan I knew. He was a weak, selfish, and cruel monster, a puppet controlled by his mother's superstitions. He had lost his humanity. After that horrific confrontation, Ethan and I stopped speaking to each other. We became strangers living under the same roof. I had no hope left, nor any pain. All I felt was disgust and a singular resolve. I had to leave. But before I did, I had to ensure my child's safety. The atmosphere in the house grew more suffocating. Chloe became more emboldened, treating me like I was invisible, ordering me around like a true mistress. And Helen had completely dropped her facade, no longer pretending to be kind. She openly brewed strange herbal concoctions, the aromas strong but always laced with that unsettling, pungent undertone. That evening, Helen was in the kitchen again. This time, it was a large pot of chicken soup. She claimed it was a special broth made from pasture-raised organic chicken bones, simmered for 48 hours with goji berries and adaptogenic mushrooms. The fragrant smell filled the house, but for some reason it made me feel nauseous. That pungent odor. I smelled it again, just like in the tonic I had poured out. But this time, it was better masked by the smell of chicken and other herbs. She ladled out 2 large bowls. One for Chloe. "Eat up, dear. It's good for the baby. My grandson deserves the best." One for Ethan. "You eat too, son. The psychic said you've been weak lately. You need this tonic to expel all the negative energy." Ethan and Chloe happily took their bowls, ready to eat. I stood at the kitchen doorway, a sense of dread washing over me. Just then, the front door burst open. Bang. Laura, Ethan's sister, stormed in, panting, her face flushed with anger. She must have heard something. This was the second time she had returned to this house. And just like at the conference, her eyes were filled with panic. "You, what are you doing back here?" Helen was so startled she dropped the ladle. Ethan and Chloe froze, their spoons halfway to their mouths. Laura ignored her mother. Her eyes scanned the room and immediately locked onto the 2 bowls of soup on the table. As a doctor, her sense of smell was incredibly sharp. She took a few sniffs, and her face turned deathly pale. "Stop! Don't eat that!" Laura screamed, her voice louder than Helen's. Before Ethan and Chloe could react, Laura lunged forward and, with all her strength, knocked both bowls of hot soup from their hands. Crash. The bowls shattered on the floor, scalding liquid splashing everywhere. Chloe shrieked in fear and jumped back. "Laura, are you insane?" Ethan yelled, furious that his meal had been ruined. "You wretched girl." Helen lunged, raising her hand to slap Laura. "Did you come back here just to cause trouble?" But Laura blocked her mother's arm. She wasn't crying or afraid. She pointed at the pot still simmering on the stove, her voice firm and filled with rage. "Mother, were you trying to kill Ethan and the baby in her womb?" "You. What nonsense are you talking?" Helen stammered, taking a step back. "That's a nourishing tonic. A premium one." "Nourishing?" Laura laughed coldly, a sound more terrifying than a sob. "You think I don't know? I can smell the aconite and the cinnabar." "Mother, do you know those are poisons? Do you know an overdose of aconite causes seizures and respiratory failure? Do you know cinnabar is mercury, and giving it to a pregnant woman can cause deformities or kill the fetus?" I stood behind the door, hearing every word, my entire body turning cold. Aconite and cinnabar. Poisons. "Do you want Ethan to get better, or do you want him to join Dad sooner?" Laura screamed, tears finally streaming down her face. "Have your superstitions driven you so mad that you've lost all your humanity?" Both Ethan and Chloe were frozen in place. They looked at the mess on the floor, then at Helen, their faces drained of all color. They must have finally realized what they had almost eaten. Helen trembled, but not from remorse, from rage. You ungrateful child, you dare to come back here and lecture me?" She lunged, grabbing Laura by the hair and shoving her toward the door. "Get out! Get out of my house right now! You are not my daughter!" Laura was pushed and fell onto the rain-slicked porch. Helen slammed the door shut and bolted it. I heard Laura pounding on the door, her voice choked with sobs. "Ethan, you coward! She's going to kill you." But Ethan just stood there, motionless. He looked at the pot of soup, then turned and silently walked upstairs. I knew then that this house was no longer a place for human beings. It was a hell on earth. That night, after Helen and Ethan were asleep, I heard a quiet knock on my window. It was Laura. She had come back not for Ethan, but for me. She looked at me, her eyes resolute. "I warned you," she said. "Do you believe me now? Come with me, now." I stood frozen at the door, watching Laura get thrown out onto the rain-slicked porch. The sound of the deadbolt locking cut off any last shred of family connection. I heard her pounding on the door, her desperate cries echoing, but my husband Ethan just stood there before silently turning his back and walking upstairs. His cowardice was even more terrifying than his mother's cruelty. That night, I couldn't sleep. I knew I couldn't wait any longer. "Laura, a neurologist, and her warning about aconite and cinnabar confirmed my deepest fears about the withered orchid. Helen wasn't just superstitious, she was deliberately poisoning her own son and anyone who stood in her way, including Chloe. Around 2 a.m., when the house was silent, I heard the soft sound of gravel hitting my window pane. I flinched, then peeked through the curtain. It was Laura. She had come back not for Ethan, but for me. She stood in the rain, soaked to the bone, gesturing for me to come down. I didn't hesitate for another second. I opened my closet, grabbed a few sets of clothes, my personal documents, and the small amount of cash I had hidden away. As I passed Ethan's home office, I paused. An instinct told me I needed to take something else. I rushed in and opened the old chest where I'd found Ethan's medical records. I quickly pulled out the entire file. On my way out, I saw Helen's coat draped over an armchair. She must have forgotten it in her haste. I suddenly remembered the strange, pungent smell in her tonics. A crazy idea flashed through my mind. I reached into the coat pocket. My fingers touched a soft, cloth-wrapped object. I pulled it out. It was a small, beautifully embroidered silk pouch. With no time to think, I stuffed it into my handbag. I ran to the kitchen and unlatched the back door. Laura was waiting. "Hurry," she whispered, grabbing my hand. We ran through the rain and jumped into her old car. The engine sputtered to life, carrying me away from the house I had once considered my home, now nothing more than a hell on earth. I looked back one last time. The darkened mansion stood silent in the rain, like a sleeping monster. Laura took me to her small apartment in an old building. It was tiny, barely 300 square feet, but it was clean and warm. "You can stay here for now. It's completely safe." "My mother would never think to look for you here," she said, handing me a dry towel. I sank to the floor and finally allowed myself to break down. I wept for my fate, for my unborn child who had already endured so much. Laura waited for me to calm down, then sat beside me. "Now, tell me everything you know." I took out the medical file I had grabbed. "I know Ethan has the same hereditary neurodegenerative disease as his father." Laura took the file and flipped through it. As a neurologist, she understood it better than I did. "That's right," she sighed. "But the problem isn't just the disease. It's my mother. She doesn't believe in medicine. Ever since Dad died, she's been convinced our family is cursed, haunted by spirits. When Ethan started showing symptoms, her belief only grew stronger." "You mean she went to a psychic?" "Yes," Laura said, her voice laced with bitterness. "A psychic told her Ethan needed a blessed son, born at a specific auspicious time, to break the family curse. That baby would be the conduit to cure the disease. Ethan would be healed." I shivered. "So Chloe." "Exactly. She and that baby are my mother's talisman. She would do anything to get that child." "And me?" Laura looked at me sympathetically. "Your baby. The psychic probably said it wasn't the blessed one, or that it was a girl, so she wanted to get rid of it. Superstition could truly turn a person into a monster." I suddenly remembered the pouch. I fumbled in my handbag and took it out. "I found this in her coat pocket when I left." Laura opened the silk pouch. Inside wasn't a charm, as I had expected. It was a small paper packet containing a pale yellow powder and a crushed-up strip of sleeping pills. Laura brought the packet to her nose and sniffed. Her face immediately hardened. "This isn't an herbal remedy, and it's not a charm," she said, her voice turning icy. "This smells like a synthetic tranquilizer, the kind used in psychiatric hospitals, ground into a powder. This, combined with the aconite and cinnabar. Grace, she doesn't just want to break a curse. She's trying to completely control Ethan, or worse, she wants him to die a slow, deniable death." I stayed in Laura's small apartment. It was a period of rare peace after the storm. The apartment was small but cozy, and Laura took excellent care of me. She bought me prenatal vitamins and cooked nutritious meals herself. "You have to eat," she'd say. "Not just for you, but for the baby. It's your only hope now." Laura advised me to change my phone number and cut off all contact with Ethan and Helen. "It's better to be safe," she insisted, giving me an old phone with a burner SIM card. I followed her advice, but my mind was in turmoil. I wondered what had happened in that house after Laura and I left. Was Chloe, the so-called blessing, truly as triumphant as she had hoped? It was only much later that I learned what transpired. After I disappeared, Helen flew into a rage. She smashed furniture, cursing me for being an ungrateful wretch who had run off with her grandchild. Ethan just stood by silently. After her fury subsided, Helen turned all her attention to Chloe. Suddenly, Chloe found herself transformed from a queen into a prisoner. Fearing Chloe would also flee, Helen confiscated her phone. "You're carrying my grandson," she explained. "Phone radiation is bad for the baby. You just focus on your health. I'll handle everything else." Chloe was placed under house arrest. Helen wouldn't let her leave, not even to step into the yard, keeping all the doors and windows locked. For security, she claimed, to protect my precious grandson. Chloe began living in a gilded cage. She was fed the finest foods and waited on hand and foot. Helen cooked for her personally, forcing her to eat 5 or 6 meals a day, all accompanied by the herbal tonics she brewed. At first, Chloe enjoyed the pampering, but soon she sensed something was wrong. The food always had a strange aftertaste, and after every meal, she felt unusually heavy and drowsy, sleeping for most of the day. She complained to Ethan, but he was in no better state. After the incident with the poisoned soup, his health had visibly declined. The headaches and tremors became more frequent, and he too was being forced to drink Helen's brain-boosting tonics daily. "Just listen to Mom," he'd slur. "She's just taking care of you. The more you sleep, the healthier the baby will be." Chloe started to become afraid. She feared the gloomy atmosphere of the house, the sound of Helen's chanting and praying late into the night, and above all, she feared Helen's gaze. It was no longer adoring. Helen would stare at her belly with a hungry, obsessive look, as if it were an object, a treasure she had to possess at all costs. Chloe, the victorious mistress, now realized she was merely an incubator. She had walked into a trap, and the trap was slowly tightening. I was in Laura's apartment, trying to focus on knitting a tiny sweater for my baby. It had been nearly a week since I escaped. Life was so peaceful, I had almost forgotten the nightmare. Laura was at work all day, leaving me to read and rest. That afternoon, as I was cooking, the burner phone Laura gave me suddenly rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated. Laura had warned me not to answer, but some instinct urged me to pick up. "Hello? Grace? It's me, Chloe." I froze. Chloe's voice on the other end was panicked and trembling with fear. She was whispering, as if hiding. How did you get this number?" I asked, wary. "I stole Ethan's old phone. Grace, you have to help me. I'm so scared." "That woman. She's completely insane." Chloe broke into sobs. "Calm down. What happened?" Despite my hatred for her, I couldn't ignore the desperation in her voice. "Ethan. He had a seizure last night," Chloe said between sobs. I was terrified. I screamed for her to call 911, but she wouldn't let me. She slapped me and said if I dared to call an ambulance, she would kill me. My heart clenched. A seizure. The disease was progressing. Chloe continued, her voice still shaking. She described a horrifying scene. While Ethan was convulsing violently, foaming at the mouth, Helen remained eerily calm. She went to the kitchen and returned with a bowl of thick, black liquid. Along with another strange woman, probably a spiritual healer, she pinned Ethan down, pried his mouth open, and poured the liquid down his throat as he struggled. She burned a talisman and sprinkled the ashes in his mouth, Chloe cried. She said she was performing an exorcism. Grace, that wasn't healing. That was murder. A chill went through me. I knew Helen's superstition was dangerous, but I never imagined she would be so barbaric. And Ethan? How is he now?" I asked, my voice shaking. "He's not convulsing anymore," Chloe whispered. "But he's not awake either. He just lies there, his eyes open but vacant. He doesn't respond when I call his name. She says his curse is strong and he needs time to recover. Grace, I'm scared. She's killing him. And I'm afraid that after I give birth, she'll get rid of me too. She has me locked in here. Please, help me." Beep, beep, beep. The call was abruptly disconnected. Chloe must have been discovered. I stood motionless in the kitchen, the chopsticks in my hand falling to the floor. Ethan, my husband, was dying, not from his disease, but from his own mother's ignorance and cruelty. Trembling, I called Laura and told her everything. I heard a loud bang on the other end of the line. Laura must have slammed her desk. "I knew it," she roared. "She's mixing aconite, tranquilizers, and that god-awful tonic of hers. They're having a chemical reaction, compounded by his neurological condition. My mother is literally killing him. What do we do, Laura?" I panicked. "Can we call the police?" "Call the police?" Laura laughed bitterly. "And say what? That my mother is giving her son herbal remedies? She'll deny everything, say it was for his health. We have no proof she's intentionally murdering him. And Ethan is so brainwashed he'd never testify against her." Laura was right. Without proof, we were helpless. Thang was willingly drinking poison. "We need something," Laura said, her voice hardening. "Something that reveals her motive is more than just superstition. Grace, think back. Did you ever notice anything unusual about her finances?" "Finances," I paused. I suddenly remembered that in my frantic escape, I had grabbed more than just the medical files and the silk pouch. I had opened Ethan's safe and snatched a thick folder. I quickly hung up and ran to my suitcase, which was still sitting in the corner of the closet. My heart pounded. In my panic, I had completely forgotten about this crucial folder. I trembled as I unzipped the suitcase and opened it. Lying on top of my clothes was a dark blue, leather-bound portfolio. I had grabbed it in a blind panic while searching the safe for cash and documents, thinking only of taking anything of value. I never imagined. I took a deep breath and opened it. Laura had just arrived, bursting through the door with a tense look on her face. "Did you find something?" I didn't speak, just flipped through the pages. The first document made my head spin. It was a life insurance policy. Insured, Ethan Miller. Beneficiary, Helen Miller. Payout, $500,000. $500,000. Not a massive fortune, but certainly not a small sum. Life insurance? Laura was stunned. When did Ethan buy this? I scanned the document for the date. My hands shook. The policy was signed 6 months ago, right after Chloe announced she was pregnant, and just 1 week before Helen brought her to live in the house. "Oh my God," I whispered. She planned all of this." Laura's face went pale. "Calm down. Maybe Ethan bought it himself." "If he bought it himself," I interrupted, "he would have made me the beneficiary. Or our child. Why Helen? And why right when Chloe got pregnant?" We looked at each other, a horrifying realization dawning on us both. If Ethan died, Helen would get $500,000. She could use that money to raise Chloe's heir. Ethan's death, it turned out, would be very profitable for her. "Wait," Laura said, flipping through the pages faster. "What else is in here?" Beneath the insurance policy was another stack of papers. Not bank statements, but loan agreements. A series of handwritten IOUs, some yellowed with age, some brand new. Borrower: Helen Miller. The total amount was in the hundreds of thousands. The lenders were unfamiliar names, but the letterhead at the bottom was from a pawn shop. From the exorbitant interest rates, I knew this was loan shark debt. My mother. Laura collapsed into a chair, seemingly unable to breathe. She wasn't just superstitious, she was a gambling addict. She defaulted on loans. I suddenly remembered the times Helen would go on religious retreats for days, the times rough-looking men would show up at the house asking for her, and how she would always claim they were Ethan's business associates. Ethan had been covering for her. Now it all made sense. Helen didn't just need an heir to break a curse, she needed money, a lot of it, to pay off her debts. Laura began to sob, but these were not tears of weakness, they were tears of pure rage. She had it all planned out. She used Chloe to produce an heir. She used your pregnancy as a decoy, trying to eliminate you with poison. And now she's using that same poison to slowly kill Ethan, both to break the curse and to collect the $500,000 insurance policy, aconite, cinnabar, tranquilizers. And used over time, they would destroy the nervous system and cause organ failure. It would look like a death caused by his pre-existing condition. She wasn't a superstitious mother. She was a monster, a demon killing her husband, son, and grandchildren to get what she wanted. "Laura," I said, gripping her hand, "we can't let her do this. We have to save Ethan, and we have to expose her." For a long moment, Laura and I sat in silence in the small apartment. The ticking of the clock on the wall was deafening, as heavy as the mood in the room. $500,000 and a pile of loan shark IOUs. Now I understood. Helen's superstition was just a cover, a convenient excuse she used to delude herself. Her true nature was driven by greed and a chilling ruthlessness. She needed money, desperately. And Ethan, her own son, was the key to getting it through a death perfectly disguised by his illness. "We have to save Ethan," I said, but my voice was so cold it surprised even me. I said I wanted to save him, but deep down, I knew I wanted to save justice, to save the last shred of decency that was being trampled underfoot, and most importantly, I had to save myself and my child. Laura shook her head, her eyes hardening, the usual weariness gone. "How? Ethan is completely brainwashed. He'll never believe us. That insurance policy is legal. He signed it voluntarily. His mother is willingly giving him tonics. We have no proof she's intentionally poisoning him. We need proof." It hit me then. Only concrete evidence could bring that woman down. I took a deep breath, a plan forming in my mind. "Laura, you have to help me. I have to go back to that house." Laura jumped up, grabbing my arm. "Are you insane? You're pregnant. Going back there is suicide. She won't spare you or your baby. Have you forgotten the orchid?" "Don't worry, I'm not going back to stay," I reassured her, though my own heart was racing. "But I have to get in. I need a sample of the tonic she's brewing. I need proof that Ethan is being forced to drink it. And," I paused, "I need to install cameras." Laura stared at me as if I were a stranger, shocked by my sudden boldness. Then she gave a firm nod. "All right. I'll help you. I'll watch the house. When she and Chloe go to the church or for a prenatal checkup, I'll let you know. I still have a spare key." The opportunity came sooner than I expected. 2 days later, Laura called. Helen was taking Chloe to the state hospital for a major checkup. The trip would take all morning. I moved immediately. I returned to that house, the place that was once my home. It felt surreal. The same luxurious mansion, the same blooming garden, but all I could feel was a cold, deathly aura. I cautiously unlocked the door. The house was silent. I ran straight to the kitchen. Just as I suspected, a pot was simmering on the stove, reeking of herbs and that familiar, pungent smell. I carefully used a small glass vial I had prepared to collect a sample of the liquid and scraped the dregs into a plastic bag, sealing them tight. Next, I went upstairs. I had bought 2 micro cameras, one hidden in a digital alarm clock and the other in a phone charger. I placed the clock in the living room, on a shelf with a clear view of the dining table and kitchen, where Helen often forced Ethan and Chloe to drink her tonics. The other one, I took to the master bedroom where Ethan and Chloe were now staying. I knew it was an invasion of privacy, but I had no other choice. I needed to know if Chloe was safe. If Helen was ruthless enough to harm Ethan, Chloe and her blessed baby were not secure either. I disguised the camera in the charger and plugged it into an outlet near the vanity. As I was adjusting the angle, I heard a faint, weak groan from the bed. I jumped, nearly dropping the device. I thought Chloe had gone to the clinic, so who was in the bed? I quickly hid behind the heavy curtains. It was Ethan. He hadn't gone to work. He was curled up in bed, shivering, his forehead drenched in sweat. He was so much thinner, his skin a sickly, sallow color. The disease, along with his mother's poison, was ravaging him. Despite my anger, seeing the man I once loved in such a state still sent a pang through my heart. I held my breath, frozen behind the curtain, my heart pounding. Ethan started talking in his sleep, tossing and turning, kicking the blanket onto the cold floor. He mumbled incoherently, delirious with a high fever. I heard his groans, his words broken by a profound fear. "Mom, no, I don't want to drink it. It's bitter. I'm tired." I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. So he knew. He knew that stuff wasn't a normal tonic. He knew it made him sick, but he was too cowardly to defy his mother, the woman he both feared and depended on. Then, he started to cry the choked sobs of an abandoned child. "Dad, I'm so scared. I don't want to die like you. I'm so scared." He was talking about my father-in-law. He was fully aware of his genetic illness. He knew the fate that awaited him. The fear of death was even stronger than the superstitious delusion his mother had fed him. He was desperate. "No, please," he said again, more clearly this time, as if begging someone. "Mom, we need a son. We have to have a son, then Dad will spare me." "You said so. We need the blessing. Chloe's baby. Chloe's baby will save me." I stood there, listening to his full confession in his delirium. So Ethan wasn't just a passive victim, he was an accomplice. He believed the psychic's prophecy, believed that only Chloe's child could be his salvation, his ticket out of the family curse, out of death. He was willing to sacrifice me, sacrifice my baby, and probably even sacrifice Chloe after she served her purpose, as long as he could live. My heart turned to ice. The last shred of pity, the last flicker of marital affection I held for him, vanished completely. A man who would sacrifice all morality for his own life was not worthy of compassion. He was no longer a victim. He was a co-conspirator with his own mother. The familiar sound of a car pulling up outside broke the silence. Helen and Chloe were back. My heart stopped. I couldn't get out through the front door. I glanced at the bedroom balcony. Luckily, the master bedroom and the adjacent room, his old office, now used by Helen to store ritual items, had adjoining balconies, separated only by a low railing. I quickly climbed over, squeezing past some withered potted plants. From here, I could get to the stairs without being seen. I had just closed the door to the storage room when I heard Helen's booming voice from downstairs. "See? A trip with me clears your head, doesn't it? The doctor said you and my grandson are perfectly healthy. Go rest, dear. Let me check on Ethan." Her footsteps started up the stairs. I had no way out. I quickly opened the door of an old wardrobe in the storage room and hid inside, behind some dusty cardboard boxes. She walked past the door without entering, heading straight for Ethan's bedroom. I heard her shriek, "Oh my God, my son, why is your fever so high?" Then I heard Chloe's panicked voice. "We should call a doctor. Helen, he's burning up." "A doctor? What for?" Helen snapped, her superstitious nature taking over. "He's in a trance. The spirits are possessing him. The higher the fever, the sooner the spirit will leave. Let me get his medicine." I heard her run downstairs, the familiar clinking of the tonic pot, then her heavy footsteps returning. I peeked through a crack in the wardrobe door. She was carrying a bowl of the dark liquid, the smell of aconite and cinnabar sickeningly strong. Ethan was still delirious. She pinned him down, pried his mouth open, and poured the poison down his throat. Chloe stood beside them, her face white as a sheet, her hands clutching her pregnant belly, trembling. By now, she must have realized she was living with a wicked witch. I didn't dare to breathe. I waited in that musty closet, my heart pounding, until I had a chance to escape. It took almost an hour. After forcing the poison down Ethan's throat until he went limp, Helen went downstairs, muttering something about needing a bigger ritual. Chloe, terrified, ran to her own room and locked the door. I knew this was my chance. When I heard Helen in the kitchen, I crept out of the closet, slipped down the stairs like a ghost, unlatched the back door, and fled. I ran without looking back. I went straight to Laura's apartment and gave her the samples. "Get these tested immediately," I said. "This is undeniable proof." I told her what I had seen Ethan's delirium, and Helen forcing the poison on him even with a raging fever. Laura just clenched her fists, her eyes bloodshot. "She's insane." My mother is truly insane. Ethan is suffering from chronic poisoning. His liver and kidneys can't take much more of this. At this rate, he won't die from the disease, he'll die from organ failure. But we still couldn't act. The lab results would take at least 2 days. And we needed more evidence from the cameras, proof that she was actively administering the poison. 2 days later, I gathered my courage and went back to the house one more time. This time, I went at night, using Laura's key. I had to retrieve the memory card from the living room camera. I didn't dare go into Ethan's bedroom again. It was too risky. But as I approached the gate, I froze. The house was brightly lit, not by electricity, but by the flickering, eerie glow of dozens of candles. The sound of chanting and a rhythmic gong echoed from within, mournful and chilling. I hid in the bushes across the street. I saw Helen kneeling before a large altar set up in the middle of the living room, thick incense smoke obscuring the view. Seated at the center of the altar was a man in colorful robes and a strange, elaborate headdress. It was a faith healer. She hadn't taken Ethan to a hospital. She had brought a faith healer home to perform an exorcism. Ethan wasn't there. He was probably locked in his room, but Chloe was. She was forced to kneel beside Helen, her face pale and terrified, looking around frantically. As the carrier of the blessed baby, she had to participate. The shaman's voice was shrill and piercing. The karma is heavy. A vengeful spirit clings to this house, cursing the entire bloodline. The child in this girl's womb is indeed a blessing, but the negative energy in this house is too strong. It's being blocked. Helen immediately bowed her head to the floor. Please, Master, save my son. Save my grandson. Whatever you ask, I will do. Whatever it costs, I will pay. The shaman closed his eyes, shaking his head mysteriously. Money is fleeting. To break this curse, we must expel the negative energy from your son. We must use blood. I heard those words, and my blood ran cold. Use blood? Whose blood? Inside, upon hearing the words use blood, Chloe trembled violently and swayed. She tried to get up and run, but Helen was faster, grabbing her arm and forcing her back down. Do you want to die? Helen hissed. Sit still. The Master is saving our family. The sounds of the gong and bells grew louder, more frantic. The air was thick with incense, the acrid smell of burning paper money, and the scent of fear. I knew I couldn't get the memory card now. The shaman and his followers did not look like ordinary people. I quickly retreated, my heart pounding. She didn't just want money. She wasn't just superstitious. She was performing a dark ritual, and Chloe and her unborn child were at the center of it. A horrifying thought struck me. The blood the shaman spoke of, could it be Chloe's or the baby's? I returned to Laura's and told her everything. I had never seen Laura so furious. As a doctor who believed in science, what her mother was doing wasn't just superstitious, it was ignorant and cruel. She's completely lost her mind, Laura said. That shaman is either manipulating her, or... Laura paused, her eyes hardening. Or they're colluding on some scheme, maybe to scam her out of money, or worse, to legitimize a crime. We couldn't wait any longer. Laura immediately called her contact at the lab to rush the test results. I, meanwhile, was glued to my phone, watching the live feed from the 2 cameras. The footage from the living room was horrifying. I watched as Helen and the shaman performed rituals all night. They forced Ethan, who was walking around like a zombie, to kneel for hours. They forced Chloe, a heavily pregnant woman, to drink a murky, yellow liquid mixed with talisman ash. Chloe struggled, but Helen slapped her across the face. Do you want your son to die? Drink it. This is holy water from the Master. Terrified for her baby, Chloe choked down the filthy liquid, only to vomit violently moments later. Helen just watched coldly. Good, you're purging the negative energy. I watched, my hands and feet turning to ice. My enemy, Chloe, the woman who had stolen my husband, was now just as pitiful as I was. We were both just pawns in Helen's game. The next day, the shaman left, but the oppressive atmosphere lingered. Ethan was locked in his room to recuperate, and Chloe was locked in hers to protect the baby from negative energy. Helen was isolating them, controlling everything. That night, as I was reviewing the camera footage, my burner phone rang. It was Chloe again. She must have had another phone hidden. Grace, help me, she whispered, her voice breaking. I'm hiding in the bathroom. I managed to get Ethan's old phone. Stay calm, Chloe. What happened? I tried to soothe her. She won't let me leave, Chloe cried. She says I'm due any day now and have to stay put. She even brought a midwife to stay here, she said. She said, "I'm going to give birth at home." I was stunned. A home birth? In this day and age? I overheard them. Chloe's voice rose in panic. I heard her on the phone with the midwife. She told her to just focus on the baby, that her grandson had to be born healthy at all costs. As for the mother, she said, just let her be. If she's too weak, well, that's her fate. Grace, she doesn't want me to live. She just wants the baby. I finally understood. Helen was afraid that if Chloe gave birth at a hospital, Chloe's name would be on the birth certificate. She wouldn't be able to legally claim the child as her heir. She wanted Chloe to give birth at home, where she had total control. If Chloe was lucky, she'd be thrown out. If she was unlucky, and there were complications, Helen would simply let her die. "She's going to kill me, Grace!" Chloe screamed into the phone. "She's going to tell Ethan I abandoned the baby or died from blood loss. She's going to steal my son. Help me. I don't want to die. My baby." Just then, I heard a loud crash on the other end, like a door being kicked in. "You bitch! You dare to hide a phone?" It was Helen's voice. Then, Chloe's terrified scream. "Ah, no, Mom, save me." The line went dead. The phone in my hand dropped, hitting the table with a dry thud. I stood frozen. Chloe's last desperate scream and Helen's vicious snarl echoed in my mind. She had found out. Chloe was in real danger. "What is it, Grace?" Laura rushed over, seeing my pale face. I couldn't speak, only tremble and point at the test results. I have to save her. Calm down." Laura gripped my shoulders. "We have proof of the poison. What do we do now? Storm the house?" I suddenly remembered. The cameras. I had installed cameras. I scrambled for my tablet and opened the app. My heart was in my throat. The signal was still live. The feed from the living room camera appeared. Helen was dragging Chloe by the hair from the hallway. Chloe was sobbing, begging, her hands clutching her belly. "Mom, please. I'm sorry. I won't do it again." Helen didn't say a word. She slapped Chloe so hard the sound cracked through the speaker. "You ungrateful wretch. I give you everything, and you conspire with that bitch Grace to betray me?" She dragged Chloe into her bedroom, but my camera was in Ethan's room, not Chloe's. I only heard the door slam and lock, and Helen's curses echoing. I quickly switched to the second camera, the one hidden in Ethan's room. He was still lying there, dazed. Helen walked in, ignoring her son, and went straight to the landline phone. She dialed a number. Laura and I leaned in, straining to hear. "Hello, is this Midwife Han?" Helen's voice was sharp, no longer the fearful woman talking to the shaman. "It's me. Get your tools and come over now. That little bitch is trying to turn on me. We have to do this sooner than planned." The person on the other end said something I couldn't make out. Helen snapped. "So what if it's early?" "She's 8 months along. She can deliver. You just get here and deliver the baby. I'll say it again. I only need the child. A healthy baby boy. You take care of him. As for the mother..." She paused, glanced at the door, and lowered her voice to a chilling whisper. "Just make the delivery. A little difficult for her. If she's too weak to make it, well, that's just her fate. Do you understand me? I'll take care of the rest. Say she bled out and we couldn't save her. I'll double your fee." Laura and I looked at each other, our faces drained of blood. She's hiring someone to kill Chloe," I whispered. "And there's more," Helen continued. "Bring the papers I asked you for, the blank birth certificate. I need to legitimize him." She hung up. I now understood her entire plan. She would force Chloe into premature labor at home and steal the baby. If Chloe died, it would be an accident. If she lived, Helen would find a way to get rid of her. Then, using a forged birth certificate, she would somehow make the baby legally mine, and Ethan's the rightful heir to the inheritance and the insurance money. A mother dies, child lives plot. So cruel it was inhuman. I trembled, a wave of nausea washing over me. That woman wasn't human. She was a demon in a mother's skin, willing to kill her daughter-in-law, her grandchild, my baby, and now her son's mistress, all for money and delusion. "Laura," I gripped her hand, "we have to do something. We can't let Chloe die like this. No matter how much I hate her, she and her baby don't deserve to die. Laura nodded. I know. But we can't just barge in. She's unhinged. We'd be walking into a death trap. This evidence still might not be enough to convict her of murder. She'll just deny it. What about Ethan? I suddenly thought of him. Does he know about this plan? Or is he just another victim? Laura looked at me, her expression complicated. Ethan is both a victim and an accomplice. He's weak and deluded, but I believe he still has some conscience left. He's afraid of dying, but I don't think he's evil enough to want to kill someone. I have to try, I said decisively. I have to let him know. If there's any humanity left in him, he has to stop her. If he won't, then he doesn't deserve to be saved either. I knew I couldn't call. Helen was controlling everything. I glanced at the camera feed from Ethan's room. He was still lying there, dazed, but he seemed a bit more alert. I opened my phone. I was still connected to him on a messaging app. I took a deep breath. First, I sent him the picture of the lab results for the poison. Aconite, cinnabar, tranquilizers. This is the brain tonic Mom has been giving you every day. I waited. After about 5 minutes, I saw Ethan stir on the camera. He reached for his phone. He looked at it, then sat bolt upright, though he was clearly very weak. He rubbed his eyes and looked at the picture again. I didn't give him time to think. I sent the video clip of Helen on the phone with the midwife, editing it to the clearest part. Just make the delivery. A little difficult for her. If she's too weak to make it, well, that's just her fate. I only need the child. I watched Ethan on the camera. He was shaking. He clutched his head and shook it violently, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing and hearing. I sent the final message. Ethan, your mother isn't just superstitious. She's in debt, and she's a murderer. She tried to kill me with an abortifacient. She's killing you with neurotoxins. And now, she's about to kill Chloe and steal her baby. Do you still want to understand her? I started a video call. It rang for a long time. Finally, he answered. Ethan's face appeared on my screen. He was no longer my handsome husband. He was gaunt, unshaven, his eyes sunken and bloodshot, filled with panic and terror. Grace, that, he stammered. That's not real. You faked it to frame Mom. You hate her, so you made it up, right? I laughed. A bitter, hollow sound. Even now, he chose to believe the lie, still trying to defend his mother. I faked it? I snarled. Do you want me to send you the $500,000 life insurance policy you signed with your mother as the beneficiary? Do you want to see her pile of loan shark debts? Do you know that when you die, she gets $500,000 to pay off her debts and raise her heir? Ethan was stunned. He knew nothing about the insurance policy. He thought he was just breaking a curse. No, it can't be, he mumbled. Mom, she wouldn't do that. She just wants what's best for me. She said I'm getting better. She said as soon as the baby is born, I'll be cured. His delusion infuriated me. Wake up, Ethan. You are a coward. I couldn't stop myself. I slapped my phone screen as if I were slapping his face. You are so weak you let your mother turn you into a monster. You are helping her commit murder. Do you know Chloe is locked up and she's called a midwife to kill her? No, I don't believe you, Ethan screamed. Stop talking. Shut up. My mother is not that kind of person. He hurled his phone against the wall. The screen went dark. As soon as Ethan smashed his phone, I knew I couldn't count on him. Laura and I looked at each other in despair. It was just the two of us, against a deranged woman and possibly the loan shark she owed money to. But then, something unexpected happened. I still had the living room camera feed open. After her phone call, Helen began pacing anxiously. Perhaps she was worried her plan would be exposed. She picked up the TV remote, intending to turn on her usual religious channel, but her eyes suddenly fixed on the digital alarm clock on the shelf. I must have been careless. When I placed it, I didn't notice the tiny, blinking Wi-Fi indicator light. I saw her squint, walk closer, and pick up the clock. She turned it over and over, then yanked the plug from the wall. The living room camera feed went black. "Oh no!" I cried out. "She found it. She knows we're watching." Laura was panicked too. "What about the one in Ethan's room?" I shakily switched to the second camera feed. It was still active. The camera hidden in the phone charger was safe. Ethan had smashed his phone, but he hadn't noticed the unfamiliar charger plugged into the wall. But that didn't help us now. Helen knew. She knew I was out there, watching her every move, and she knew I had evidence, even if she didn't know about the insurance policy yet. Silence filled Laura's apartment. We knew it was the calm before the storm. What would a cornered Helen do? She didn't make us wait long. About an hour later, my burner phone rang. It was Helen's number. My heart stopped. I looked at Laura, who nodded, signaling me to put it on speaker. "Hello?" I tried to keep my voice steady. "Grace? Is that you, dear?" Helen's voice came through, not with the anger I expected, but with a weak, trembling remorse. "Grace, I was wrong, my child." Laura and I exchanged a stunned look. "What new act was this?" I just found the camera you put in the living room," she began to sob. I know everything. I know you think I'm a monster, but I was just so worried about Ethan. I was tricked by that shaman. I was pressured by the debt collectors. I was desperate and did a foolish thing." She wept pitifully. "My child, Ethan. He saw the video you sent and went into shock. He had another seizure, hit his head on the bed frame. He's dying, Grace." I flinched. I glanced at the camera in Ethan's room. He was lying on the bed, seemingly motionless. I couldn't see if he was injured. He's calling your name. He keeps calling for you, Grace." Helen wailed into the phone. "Please come back. Come back and see him one last time. I'm begging you. I'll get on my knees if you want. Please, come back and save Ethan. I'm begging you. Chloe, she's scared too. She's crying and says she's sorry. Please come back. We can take Ethan to the hospital together." Her performance was flawless. Her cries sounded so genuine, so full of a mother's despair. I wavered. What if Ethan was really hurt? Despite my hatred for him, the thought that he might be dying because of the video I sent made my heart sink. "Don't believe her," Laura whispered, shaking her head. "It's a trap. She found the camera and knows she can't hide anymore, so she's luring you back. She wants to capture you to silence you. She doesn't care if Ethan lives or dies." I knew Laura was right. This was undoubtedly a trap. A final, desperate trap to get me, Chloe, and our 2 babies in one place. "Grace? Are you listening to me?" Helen's sobs continued. I took a deep breath. "Okay, I'll come back." "Are you crazy?" Laura hissed. I held up a hand to quiet her. "Mom, wait for me," I said into the phone, my voice also trembling. "After all, he's my husband. I'll come see him one last time. Please, don't do anything to Chloe. I'm begging you. I won't. I promise." "Just hurry," she said, quickly hanging up. I looked at Laura. "I have to go, but not to fall into her trap. Call the police now. Call that contact you mentioned before. Tell them everything. Give them the address. But tell them not to go in right away. Have them wait at the end of the street for my signal. What are you planning to do?" "I'm going in there," I said, my voice firm. "She wants both her prizes in the cage? Fine, I'll go. But this time, I'll be the one setting the trap." I knew it was a dangerous gamble. I was pregnant, walking willingly into the lion's den. But I had to go. Chloe was in there, and I needed an end to all of this. Laura couldn't stop me. She quickly called her friend on the police force, urgently reporting a kidnapping and a potential poisoning and murder plot. She handed me the lab results, the insurance policy, and the IOUs. "Take these. They're your protection. The police and I will be right at the end of the street. Keep your phone's GPS and recorder on at all times. Do not turn them off." I nodded. I tucked the folder inside my coat, activated the voice recorder, and slipped my phone into an inner pocket. I took a cab to the end of the street. My heart was pounding. The sky was getting dark, the street eerily quiet. I took another deep breath and walked toward the familiar iron gate. The gate was unlocked. Helen was waiting for me at the door. As soon as she saw me, she rushed out, tears streaming down her face, her expression one of pure maternal panic. "Grace, you're back. Help, help Ethan. He's so weak." She grabbed my hand, pulling me inside. Her hand was as cold as ice. The living room was dark, the altar gone, smelling only of stale incense. "Where is he?" I asked, trying to peer into the shadows. "Upstairs, in his room," she pointed. "He's waiting for you." I walked up the stairs, one step at a time. My instincts screamed at me to stop, that this was a trap, but I had to keep going. I pushed open the door to Ethan's bedroom. The room was dark, but in the dim light from the hallway, I saw that Ethan wasn't in bed. He was sitting in a wheelchair in the corner, his back to me, motionless. "Ethan?" I called softly. And then times, slam, asterisk. The bedroom door slammed shut behind me. The sound of the deadbolt echoed coldly. Helen was standing right behind me. The tears on her face had vanished, the remorseful smile replaced by a twisted demonic grin. "You're back, are you, you little bitch?" The lights flickered on, and I froze. This was no ordinary trap. Ethan was in the wheelchair, but he was tied down, his eyes wide with terror, his mouth gagged. He was alive, but his gaze was one of utter desperation. In the other corner, Chloe was lying on a cot, her hands tied to the frame. Her pregnant belly was high, her face pale and slick with sweat. She was gasping for air. You. I stumbled backward. "That's right. I called you both back," Helen cackled. "Lured one with a dying husband, the other with a fake rescue. Now you're all here." The midwife, Han, and the shaman from before stepped out of the bathroom. The midwife carried a bag of tools, the shaman held a rope. What are you doing?" I trembled, my back pressed against the cold door. "What am I doing?" she sneered. "I'll show you. Today, I break the curse once and for all. Midwife, get ready." Chloe's water just broke. I looked down at Chloe's feet. A pool of fluid was spreading on the floor. Her water had broken. A contraction seized her, and she writhed in agony, unable to scream past her gag. Helen had given her something to induce labor. My God, she had planned the timing perfectly, to coincide with my arrival. "Tie her up," Helen ordered, pointing at me. "Today, whichever one of you gives birth to a son gets to live. The other one, and her cursed spawn, will be a sacrifice to cleanse this family's karma." The shaman advanced toward me. I looked around desperately for an escape, my eyes landing on a small hammer on top of an old cabinet. As the shaman lunged, I grabbed it. "Stay back! I'll kill you!" I screamed. But he just laughed. He was much bigger and stronger. He grabbed me, and I swung the hammer wildly, missing. He twisted my arm, and the hammer clattered to the floor. Asterisk, bang, 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 asterisk. At that moment, a furious pounding came from downstairs. "Police, open up!" It was Laura's voice. "Mom, open the door. We know you're in there." Helen froze. She hadn't expected the police to arrive so quickly. The shaman and the midwife panicked too. "Let go of me." No one ruins my ritual." Helen shrieked like a wounded animal. She lunged toward Chloe, pulling a sharp paring knife from her pocket. "If you come in here, I'll kill her. I'll kill the baby." She held the knife to Chloe's belly. Chloe's eyes widened in terror before she passed out. The air in the room went still. The sharp paring knife hovered inches from Chloe's belly. She had fainted, her face pale, slick with cold sweat. The pool of water at her feet was now tinged with pink. She was bleeding. The pounding downstairs grew more frantic. "Mom, open up. Are you insane? If you do anything crazy, I'm calling the police." Laura's voice echoed from outside. Helen let out a wild, chilling laugh. "The police? Let them come. If they come in, we'll all die together. I have nothing left to lose. I must have my grandson. I must break this curse." She turned to the shaman and the midwife and snarled. "What are you two waiting for? Hold her down. Lock that door." The two were terrified, but seeing the knife in Helen's hand and her crazed expression, they didn't dare disobey. The shaman lunged to restrain me again. I backed away, screaming, trying to buy time. "You're lying. There is no curse. I stared directly at Ethan, who was still tied to the wheelchair, shaking, tears streaming down his face. Tell him the truth. Tell him about his father. He didn't die from a curse. His illness is hereditary. You've been lying to everyone. You've been lying to your own son. My words hit their mark. Helen whipped around, her eyes bloodshot. You, what do you know? You cursed thing. How dare you say it's an illness? It's not an illness. It's a spirit. His father was weak-willed and didn't believe the master, so the spirit dragged him away. Dad wasn't dragged away by a spirit. A hoarse, weak but furious voice came from the corner. It was Ethan. He had managed to work the gag out of his mouth. Helen froze, staring at her son in disbelief. You, what did you say? For the first time in his life, I heard Ethan scream at his mother. He had seen the videos, the insurance policy. His fear and delusion had shattered, leaving only the raw despair of a man who knew he was dying. Dad took his own life. He died of despair. My heart stopped. Took his own life? I thought he died from the disease. That's right, Ethan is right. Laura's voice now came from the window. She must have climbed onto the balcony. Dad despaired, Mom. And you were the one who drove him to it. He wasn't desperate because of the illness, but because of your superstition. Because you forced him to drink talismans and perform rituals instead of going to a hospital. He couldn't take it anymore. Helen staggered, the knife in her hand trembling. She looked from Ethan to the window where Laura's voice originated. I was saving him, she mumbled, sounding completely detached from reality. He was weak. He dared to leave me. He said he would rather die than live. As an invalid, and pass the curse to his son. He promised he wouldn't leave me, she shrieked, a mournful cry that tore through the night. He left me, so I had to save you. Ethan, I swore at his grave. I had to save you, at any cost, even if I had to sin. I had to have a grandson. I had to break this curse. The final ugly truth was laid bare. A tragedy born from ignorance, superstition, and a tyrannical oath. She wasn't saving anyone. She was repeating her husband's tragedy with her own son. The pounding on the door downstairs stopped, replaced by the sound of splintering wood at this very door. Asterisk crack. Asterisk Mom, open up. It's the police. The door was about to give way. I knew it, and Helen knew it. But instead of surrendering, the desperation in her eyes intensified. Realizing it was all over, she decided to fulfill her final objective. I've lost everything, she screamed, her hair wild, looking every bit a demon. I have nothing left, but I must have my grandson. I must have him. She whirled on the midwife, who was cowering in the corner. What are you waiting for? Do it. Cut him out. Get me the baby. Now. The midwife was petrified. You're crazy. The police are right outside. This is murder. I can't do it. You can't? Helen sneered. The knife that was at Chloe's belly was now pointed at the midwife. You took my money. You're an accomplice. If you don't do it, I'll kill you first, then I'll cut him out myself. Choose. The midwife looked at the sharp knife, then at the unconscious Chloe, blood now staining the sheets. She knew she had no choice. I'll do it, she stammered, shakily opening her bag of tools. The shaman, seeing the chaos, tried to sneak toward the window to escape. But Helen screeched, If you run, I'll kill you too. Hold that bitch down. The shaman, terrified, grabbed me again. I was pregnant and exhausted, no match for his strength. He threw me to the floor. I watched in horror as the midwife took out a bottle and poured a yellowish antiseptic over Chloe's abdomen. Then, she produced a small scalpel, its blade gleaming under the light. No, stop! I screamed. She's insane. Chloe is bleeding out. You'll kill them both. Ethan, tied to his chair, was growling, trying to break his bonds. He stared at his mother, his eyes filled not with delusion, but with absolute horror. He was watching his mother, in her twisted attempt to save him, murder the woman carrying his child. Hurry up, Helen urged. The midwife closed her eyes, her trembling hand bringing the scalpel slowly down toward Chloe's tense belly. The scene was more terrifying than any horror movie. An unconscious pregnant woman, a trembling midwife with a scalpel, a crazed mother holding them hostage, and a brute holding me down. The sounds of the door breaking were like a distant, hopeless echo. I was desperate. I knew I couldn't stop them. The scalpel was about to touch Chloe's skin. In that final, terrifying second, as the midwife's scalpel was about to make its first cut, I screamed with every ounce of strength I had left. "Wait!" My scream, born of pure desperation, made Helen pause. The midwife's hand froze. Helen turned to me, her eyes bloodshot with impatience. "What do you want now?" I gasped for air, trying to stall for every precious second until the police broke through. You want your grandson, right?" I said breathlessly. "You want to break the curse? But you also want the money, the $500,000 from Ethan's life insurance." Those words hit home. Helen froze. The shaman and the midwife looked up, surprised. What did you say?" she snarled. "I know everything." I screamed, though the shaman's grip was crushing me. "The insurance policy, your loan shark debts. I took all the original documents. I hid them. Even if you get this baby, you won't get the money. If you kill Ethan, you won't get a single cent from the insurance company. I've already notified them." Of course, I was lying. The documents I had were copies, and I hadn't notified anyone. But in this situation, it was my only gamble. Helen's face contorted. Her plan rested on two pillars: the baby to break the curse, and the insurance money to pay her debts. Now, I was threatening both. "The documents, where did you hide them?" "Let us go," I demanded, though I knew it was futile. "Let Chloe go. Let Ethan go. Take everyone to the hospital. If you don't, and I die, those documents will be sent straight to the police. You'll end up with nothing, and you'll go to prison." Helen stared at me, her eyes flickering. She was calculating. The sound of the door cracking grew louder. Ethan, who had been silent, was now staring at me. He had heard everything. He finally understood that I knew about his illness, his mother's debts, and the insurance policy. He finally realized I wasn't the cursed thing his mother claimed I was. I was trying to save him, even after he had betrayed me. His gaze was no longer fearful, but filled with a profound, soul-crushing shame. Helen's hesitation lasted only a few seconds before she burst into a crazed laugh. "You're lying. You think I'd believe you? You're just a little bitch. I don't need the money. I just need my grandson. I have to fulfill my promise to Ethan's father." She had completely lost her mind. The money no longer mattered, only her obsessive oath did. She turned to the midwife and screamed, "Do it! Don't listen to her! Cut Chloe open! Now!" The midwife, cornered, raised the scalpel again. The shaman tightened his grip on me. I knew I had lost the gamble. But just then, Ethan, the weak, cowardly man I had come to despise, did something I never would have expected. With a strength born of pure desperation, he roared and snapped the ropes binding his hands to the wheelchair. He couldn't stand, but he threw his entire body forward, propelling the heavy wheelchair across the room. It slammed into the shaman holding me. Caught by surprise, the shaman stumbled and fell, hitting his head on the corner of a table. I was free. The wheelchair continued its momentum, crashing into the midwife. She shrieked and fell backward, the scalpel flying from her hand. The room erupted into chaos. I scrambled to Ethan's side. He had collapsed from the effort, gasping for air on the floor. Helen stared, dumbfounded. Her own son, the one she was trying to save, had just destroyed her plan. Rage, betrayal, and madness converged in her expression. She let out an inhuman scream and snatched the paring knife from the floor. She didn't run toward Chloe or Ethan. She ran toward me. You ruined everything. I'll kill you." The sharp knife came straight for me. I was pregnant and clumsy. I could only throw my arms up to shield my face, stumbling backward, knowing I couldn't dodge in time. Ethan was on the floor. Laura and the police were still outside. But just as the tip of the knife was inches from me, a deafening crash exploded through the room. The bedroom door burst from its hinges, splintering into pieces. Laura and two plainclothes police officers stormed in. For a split second, everyone froze. The scene was pure chaos. Helen was mid-lunge, knife raised at me. Chloe was unconscious and bleeding on the cot. Ethan was collapsed on the floor next to his overturned wheelchair. The midwife and shaman were cowering in a corner. "Drop the knife!" one of the officers yelled, aiming his gun at Helen. A flashlight beam pinned her face. Seeing the police, the gun, and Laura, the madness in Helen's eyes seemed to recede, doused by a shock of cold reality. She stopped, her arms still raised, the knife hovering in midair. She looked at the knife, then at Ethan, at me, at Chloe. Suddenly, she began to laugh, a rattling, cackling sound that morphed into gut-wrenching sobs. She stumbled backward and collapsed onto the floor, the knife clattering on the tile. "It's over," she mumbled, then looked up at the ceiling. "The curse is over. My grandson. It's all over." She didn't resist or run. She just sat there, laughing and crying like a truly insane person. Laura wasted no time. She didn't even glance at her mother. She ran straight to Chloe's side. "Ambulance! Call an ambulance now. Patient's water has broken. Heavy bleeding. Suspected induction with unknown drugs. Her pulse is weak." An officer immediately spoke into his radio. After checking on Chloe, Laura rushed to Ethan. She helped him sit up, checking his pulse, her eyes full of pain. "Ethan, are you okay?" "Stay with me." Ethan grabbed her hand and whispered, "Laura, save Chloe and the baby." I leaned against the wall, my legs giving out from under me. I slid to the floor, my hands wrapped protectively around my belly. Asterisk. My baby. Asterisk. I thought, asterisk, we're safe. We're finally safe. Asterisk. The officers quickly apprehended Helen. She didn't fight back, only muttered, "Break the curse." I had to break the curse. The shaman and the midwife raised their hands in surrender, trembling. We were forced. It was her. She made us do it." Soon the wail of sirens filled the air. Paramedics rushed in. They carefully placed Chloe on a stretcher, then Ethan on another. He had passed out from exhaustion. As they carried him past me, he managed to open his eyes. His gaze was no longer delusional or fearful, only filled with shame and an immeasurable sadness. He mouthed 2 words I could clearly read, "I'm sorry." Then his eyes closed. I watched them lead away a handcuffed Helen, followed by the shaman and the midwife. The room fell silent, leaving only a scene of destruction, the stench of blood and the cloying smell of herbs. Laura came back and helped me up, pulling me into a hug. We both cried. "It's over, Grace," she whispered. "It's really over. Let's go. You need to get checked out at the hospital. You and the baby have been through too much." I nodded, leaning on her as I took one heavy step after another out of that haunted house. This time, I knew I would never have to come back. I was helped into an ambulance, my hands still protectively wrapped around my belly, my legs too weak to stand. Another ambulance, its siren blaring, sped away ahead of us with Chloe and Ethan. The noise shattered the night's silence, causing lights to flick on in neighboring houses, followed by whispered gossip. I watched the dark mansion recede behind us. The nightmare was over, but its aftershocks still squeezed the air from my lungs. At the hospital, I was taken straight to the emergency room. The doctors checked me thoroughly. Miraculously, despite the severe emotional trauma and being thrown to the floor, my baby was stable. My child's heartbeat was strong and resilient. The doctor insisted I be admitted for observation to prevent premature labor. Laura handled all the paperwork, her face a mask of exhaustion and stress. As I was being wheeled out of the ER, I heard frantic screaming from the end of the hall, the critical care unit, where they had taken Ethan and Chloe. 2 police officers and several nurses were trying to restrain Helen. Her catatonic state was gone. When she saw me, her madness erupted anew. She thrashed wildly, trying to break free. "You!" she shrieked. Her voice a raw, insane screech as she pointed a trembling finger at me. "It was you, you cursed bitch! Give me back my grandson! You stole him from me! Give him back!" She fought to get to me, her eyes bloodshot and crazed. It took several orderlies to hold her down. "Let me go. I have to find my grandson. He's the blessing. He'll break the curse. You all stole him. I'll kill you all. Kill you. I looked at her, a strange emptiness inside me. I felt no more hatred, no more fear. I only felt pity. A woman who, through delusion, greed, and obsession, had destroyed her own family, pushed her son to the brink of death, and now had lost her own mind. "Ma'am, please calm down," an officer said. "Your son is in critical condition. Making a scene won't help anyone." "Help?" She let out a terrifying laugh. "Why would you help him? He's ungrateful. He dared to stop me. He ruined the ritual. He's not my son. My son must live. He must be healthy. Only my grandson can save him. Give me back my grandson." The nurses had no choice but to administer a heavy sedative. She slowly went limp, her lips still forming the words, "Grandson, blessing, break the curse." The door to the psychiatric ward closed, separating her from the reality she had so violently tried to warp. I sighed and placed a hand on my belly. Asterisk. It's over, my love. At least, for us. Asterisk. That night in the hospital was endless. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, the image of Helen with the knife, of Chloe bleeding on the cot, of Ethan's desperate eyes, would flash in my mind. Laura sat by my bedside, awake. She was the only lucid member of her family left, juggling my care with the situations of Chloe and Ethan. Periodically, she would rush out to the ICU, returning each time with a heavier heart. At dawn, as the first weak rays of light filtered through the window, Laura returned. Her face was ashen, her eyes swollen. She sat down and took my hand. "Chloe." She hesitated. She didn't make it. My heart sank. Even though she had caused me so much pain, hearing of her death, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sorrow. She was just another victim of deception, of greed, and of her own naivety. "She gave birth to a baby boy," Laura continued, her voice cracking. "But the induction drugs Helen gave her were too strong, and she lost too much blood at the house. The doctors did everything they could. She died without ever seeing her son." I was silent. A life was lost. A child was now motherless from the moment of his birth. And Ethan?" I asked softly. Laura shook her head, tears finally falling. "He's not doing well. The psychological trauma, combined with the long-term poisoning, the aconite and tranquilizers have destroyed his liver and kidneys." "The fall wasn't the main cause," Laura sobbed. "The doctors said he doesn't have much time. He's in multi-organ failure. He was paying the price for his delusion." I closed my eyes. The price of silence, the price of weakness, was far too high. I decided to see Ethan one last time. Laura helped me into a wheelchair. He was in the ICU, a tangle of tubes and wires connecting him to humming machines. He looked nothing like the handsome man I married. He was skeletal, his skin a waxy, jaundiced yellow. He was conscious, but incredibly weak. When he saw me, he tried to move, but couldn't. Tears rolled down his temples. "Grace," he rasped, his voice so faint I had to lean in to hear. I stood there, looking at the man I had once loved with all my heart, feeling a strange sense of peace. "Why were you silent, Ethan?" I asked, my voice devoid of anger, only a deep, endless sadness. "If you had spoken up sooner, if you had been braver, if you had believed me, or Laura, or science, none of this would have happened." He wept, the sound of late-stage regret. "I was scared. Scared of Mom. Scared of dying. I was so lost. I'm sorry." His silence had killed Chloe. His silence had nearly killed me and my child. And in the end, his silence had killed him. I said nothing more and turned to leave. His apology was far too late. A few days later, Chloe's family came from out of state to claim her body. Her funeral was a quiet affair. Her son with Ethan, now named Kyle, was a new, tragic complication. His maternal grandparents were too poor to raise a child, let alone one who might have health issues. They were planning to put him up for adoption, but Laura refused. "He's my nephew," she told me. "He's the last piece of my brother. My mother used superstition to try and destroy him. I will use science to save him." She adopted Kyle herself. Ethan passed away a month after Chloe. Before he died, with Laura's help, he canceled the life insurance policy and wrote a new will. After selling the mansion to pay off Helen's massive debts, he left what remained to his infant son. It was the last and only thing he could do as a father. I had to stay in the hospital for a while to ensure my pregnancy was stable. During that time, Laura, ever the scientist, insisted on one final truth. "I need to know if the disease is passed on," she said. She tested Kyle's blood and, with my permission, took an amniotic sample from me. The day the results came, we sat together in my hospital room. Laura opened the first envelope, Kyle's results. She read it, then buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking. "Positive," she whispered, her eyes red. "He has it. He has the gene." My heart broke. It was the ultimate tragic irony. The blessed heir Helen had committed so many sins to obtain carried the very curse she feared. Her ignorance had created a devastating, self-fulfilling prophecy. With trembling hands, Laura opened the second envelope, mine. The air grew thick. I held my breath. She read it, then reread it, and then burst into tears. But these were tears of relief. "Grace," she cried, unable to speak. "What is it?" I begged. "Negative," she finally managed to say. "Your baby is completely healthy. No sign of the gene." I let out a shuddering breath, my body going limp. My child was safe. "And Grace," Laura said, smiling through her tears, "the results also show you're having a girl. A healthy baby girl. A girl." I began to cry too. A deep, cleansing sob. A girl. The baby Helen had tried to eliminate simply because she wasn't a blessed boy. 2 years later, a cool autumn breeze rustles the leaves outside my small cottage, carrying the faint scent of the sea. I sit on the porch, knitting a pale yellow sweater, my eyes fixed on my little girl. Hope, my angel, is toddling across the green lawn, her laughter like silver bells. The storm passed, leaving behind irreparable damage, but also planting the seeds for a new, peaceful life. Helen was deemed mentally unfit to stand trial and was committed to a high-security psychiatric facility. I've never visited. Laura went once and said she just sits, clutching a rag doll, muttering all day about her grandson and breaking curses. Laura devoted her life to Kyle. She sold her apartment and used her savings, along with Ethan's inheritance, to open a small private clinic from her new home. She works tirelessly, researching treatments for his condition, determined to give him the best life possible, to fight the disease with the science her mother had so violently rejected. I finalized my divorce from a man who was already gone. I became a single mother and moved with hope to a small coastal town hundreds of miles away. I opened a little bakery, living a quiet, simple life. Hope runs to me and tumbles into my lap, her tiny hand offering me a white daisy. I pull her close, inhaling the sweet, milky scent of her hair. Life took from me a husband and a family I once trusted. But in return, it gave me a little angel, and most importantly, it gave me freedom and peace of mind. Some wounds never fully heal, but they teach you to cherish the present and to love yourself more. I look out at the ocean. The afternoon sky is a vast, brilliant blue. I know my future, and my daughters, will be just like that sky, peaceful and boundless.